I decided, time is the most finite asset I've got. And I decided that it needed to go, my time needed to go into building my own brand, not building their brand. So,
Okay, welcome back to Thrive in the Future. This week I have John McCoy with me. Welcome back, John.
hey, how's it going, Scott?
Good. So you were on last time and we were talking about reinventing yourself and you were talking about being a freelancer. What's new in freelance land?
Well, it's funny you should mention reinventing yourself because that's kind of what's actually going on. I think I looked that episode up and I think it was in April, March or April when we
Mhm.
recorded.
Yeah.
And I think at the time I was kind of angling towards thinking I'd want to do an agency. And then I realized I actually enjoy my life and I didn't want to know an agency. um, so I kind of reimagined it completely. Instead of biting off that, way more than I want to chew. I decided I started venturing more into learning SEO. And what I did with that is realized I'm not an SEO nerd. But that even with just a cursory understanding, I'm light years ahead of most people. So I'm
Sure.
trying to figure out melding how a content writer still knows more than the average bear about SEO, but is not an expert. Well, where is that niche put me? So I'm kind of exploring that right now. Is actually where I'm at.
Yeah, it's funny you say bear because really everybody says, well, I'm not an expert, right? But you're not an expert, but you're still going to get stuff done. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to be faster than the bear and faster than your friends, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think you said that in an email a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, he's on to something there. That is very true.
Yeah.
So well, and I didn't. I just launched my own website. It's my second website. I launched one 3 years ago. Totally floundered. I canceled it. So I relaunched it with a different domain this time. It's just enough SEO. Friend of mine had that brilliant idea. We were just having a conversation. He said, "You need to do something with just enough SEO." I'm like, I'm buying that domain right now.
That's great.
So I did. So what it is kind of and not to get ahead of myself, but we're already kind of talking about that. It's, I'm writing it as a blog, not so much
Mhm.
as a business page, because I don't know how to do WordPress. So I'm learning WordPress
Sure.
and I'm actually learning SEO as I go. I had a good cursory understanding of how keywords work, but now it's the whole technical component. And it's a much bigger animal than I imagined when I was just, tweeting about, you know, keywords. Like that's like the 5% of the iceberg, and then the rest of it is underwater.
Yeah, I use a Generate Press WordPress plugin, and that's the one I like the best. It gives more of a blog feel than some of those other themes and stuff.
What was
So
it called? I'm actually going to write that down.
Generate Press.
Generate press. All right.
Yep, it's cool.
Very cool. I
So
like
yeah,
the one I have is a very brutally simplistic design, but it's so simplistic. Like, I mean, I will have to do everything. I'm like, I don't know anything about WordPress. Like, that's a lot to try to. It can be as simple as you want, but if you want to build it out, I mean, there's a whole lot there. So,
oh yeah, and then you go down it's the same thing as everything, right? You do it, and then you get to the year mark,
mhm.
and then it either goes up, and now you've got your hosting plus your individual plugins, and it's like, well, wait a minute, how did I end up $500 in the hole here?
For real. Yeah, they're like first year's only $14. It's 100 after that, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, it was funny. I was working with I've got all-in-one SEO, which we were talking
mhm.
about, and the plugin after a year, they send you an email and they say use this link to renew, and that's full price. But if you do it through the WordPress dashboard, it goes at the regular half price. So I'm like, okay, well, it's half price. I'm, do it that way. And then, and then they were like, oh, mad. I'm like, look, you know,
That's
so
it's your plugin,
yeah, I mean, I followed the link that was in the plugin. I mean, it's your plugin and it's got the button right there. So,
Exactly.
that was pretty funny. But yeah, so so you're still doing the blogging for folks?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, actually, it's the same people. I would say what I've done is I streamlined a couple of small clients and focus just on all my focus is on 2 large retainer clients now.
Mhm.
That's, that's paying the bills, that's putting, money in the savings account.
Sure.
And, because what I started to realize was that the small ones, yeah, I enjoy them, but what if it's between these ones that, maybe is an extra $500 a month, it's not worth it when I could be investing that, because I mean, that's not investing anything in myself.
Mhm.
I decided, time is the most finite asset I've got. And I decided that it needed to go, my time needed to go into building my own brand, not building their brand. So, sorry guys, but numero uno comes first.
That's the soundbite that's going to be at the beginning of the episode right there. I know.
I love it. I love it.
It's good. So yeah, really, I liked what you've got it as your pinned tweet
Mm-hmm.
that you are creating content for human beings, not optimized for or not for machines, right? Because
Yes.
everybody gets into this SEO and they go, oh yeah, and then there was one thing I saw that was keyword stuffing, and they start like
Yes.
and then it starts sounding like somebody from a foreigner where English is not their first language, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually, so for one of my clients, I use the Surfer SEO app, which I think overall is a pretty cool service.
Hmm.
They kind of make it really almost foolproof. Like they do the whole, it'll create the whole content map for you and everything, just if you plug in some keywords. And overall, I like it, but you know, what it does is it takes you against the key competitors. It provides 5 to 10 of them in there. And then it gives you this scale and it provides you like 100 keywords off to the side. And to beat them in terms of ranking, and anyone that in your audience has ever seen Surfer knows what I'm talking about. You're kind of like keyword stuffing, because it'll tell you also how many times you need to do it. And in some respects, I think it's a clever service, but you got to really catch yourself, because at the end of the day, you are focusing on talking to people. And
Right.
you're absolutely right. We when I that's what I really figured out when I started going down the SEO rabbit hole, and I was reading articles every single night, dozens of articles over the weeks and months. And I'm like, this is really handy stuff to know, but at the end of the day, we're still writing the people. And I think, that was the thing. And anyone in my space that writes for money full time, I think we all had a little, twinge in the pit of our stomach in like April, I think it was, when ChatGPT dropped. We're like, oh, maybe it really is going to take our jobs. And now, you can sniff out a ChatGPT response or paragraph a mile away. You're like, this is terrible.
Yep.
It just doesn't flow. It sounds canny. It has 400 emojis in it. And what I think the key takeaway is after that is that you're not going to replace humans and
Hmm.
and machines. It doesn't matter how advanced they get, they're still never going to talk to a human like a human does. They don't have a soul. They don't have any soul. They have no learned experience to put into the material. They don't have any background because they're a machine.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw a blog post from a friend of mine that he obviously used Chat GPT, and it was like, this doesn't even sound like you.
Yeah.
So, you know, so
Yep.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
and I
that's
was
good because that's one thing we talked about last time was, you know, is Chat GPT going to mess with all of our jobs, right?
no, not a chance. Like, I'm not as far as writers. I know, because I mean, we've seen now, we're about 9 months since it dropped, and I've seen people in the developing and the coding spaces basically saying the exact same thing to
Hmm.
me. And what I will say is that I believe AI has value. Like for me, it has a lot of value in creating ideation. Like if I just am sitting here, like I know I need to produce content, and I'm just having a hard time coming up with just a very rough rudimentary idea. It's good for that. Um, but it is very limited. I even put in my own blog post that was 100% written by me as one of my articles, as one of my newsletter articles. And I said, hey, I want you to break this down into like 5 LinkedIn posts, which then I recycled for Twitter. And they sounded terrible. I was telling it to use my own material, and it still came out sounding like a foreigner wrote it and stuffed it with emojis and hashtags. And I'm like, that wasn't even what I said. So
Yeah.
I think the key takeaway is that um, if you are afraid, especially if you're a creative, if you're afraid of AI taking your job, you probably just should spend your time not worrying about that and spend your time getting better at what you do.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
because
Yeah,
well,
I was looking at a guitar website last week, and it was obvious that somebody chat GPT one of these articles because it was about or making your guitar sound like an organ. What
mhm.
kind of pedals do you need to buy to make your guitar sound like an organ? And then halfway through the article, someone messed up and it started talking about actual organs, like keyboard organs.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you know, it wasn't written by a guitar player. It was probably written by ChatGPT or some combination of the two.
Yes. Yeah, actually I got caught. It was a topic, it was avionics for a jet that was very, very, I couldn't find anything on it. Nothing at all. And so I just was like, I'll just ask ChatGPT what avionics suite this jet had in it. And it turns out I was wrong. And I got called on. He's like, the guy editing was like, I thought that this had the Garmin, G1000X. And I'm like, oh God. so, so that was my first intro that you have to be very careful about trusting it, you know, because it'll go off the rails, like you said just now. So, yeah, I don't think we're in any particular threat from that from at this point in time.
Yeah, that's good. I know that a lot of people are hooking their systems up to ChatGPT and then they're finding out that there's security issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, you probably don't want to do that.
Yeah, it seems to me like that's one. I mean, I watched Terminator. I don't think I'd hook up my personal accounts to a bot, you know.
Yeah. Well, everything that's happened since 2020, you're like, come on, did you guys not watch any of these movies?
Yeah, were you guys not paying any attention? Come on now.
Yeah. Yeah, we went down through the list and we identified like 20 movies that had happened since 2020. You know,
Man.
got Resident Evil in there somewhere, and
Yep,
stuff.
yep, for sure.
So it's pretty funny. Great. So one of the things you had on there, you shared a tweet the other day about estimated click value. What's that and where did you get that from?
That's actually a tool off of SEO service I use called SpyFu.
Hmm.
And what they're just going is based off of the amount of clicks that you have, the value of the keywords. And so that was a screenshot straight off of their service. And they so unlike like Ahrefs and SEMrush and Moz, SpyFu is a lot cheaper. That's why I use it. um, but mostly they are actually more of a, as the name suggests, they actually are more of a spying service. So what they are really good at is comparing your domain to a competitor's and kind of giving you an idea of what the common ground is with their keywords. Um, and what they do is kind of rack and stack your domain against theirs, and that's, I think, where they kind of have an estimated value, and I think that's pretty cool, that
Yeah,
they can
that's
have
good.
it. It really is. Now there's a lot of wiggle room because I don't remember if I was my one of the bigger website I write on or the smaller one. um but the estimated click value of the large website, which they get 40,000 hits a month, is like, I don't want to speak out of turn, so I'm gonna have to look it up. But it's thousands of dollars. So that's just an internal tool to that. So it's spyfu.com and it's only $40 a month. So if you're wanting to dabble in SEO, it's honestly one of the cheapest monthly services that you can get.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
Mm.
Spy, SPYFU,
Mhm.
right?
Yep,
Right.
that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me,
That's cool. I'm gonna have to check that out.
yeah, it's um I think it's worth it in terms of what you get. It really is worth it. It's not as nice of a service as Ahrefs and as SEMrush, but if you're just wanting a comparison tool, it's pretty hard to beat the price.
Yeah, SEMrush is really expensive though.
Really expensive. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's like 100 or 200 bucks a month.
Oh yeah, I thought it wasn't quite that expensive, but yeah, that's pretty expensive. I noticed that when I was using the plus version of all-in-one SEO, that if you click the if you click the corresponding keywords, it'll go to SEMrush and bring you the results.
Yep. They
and
they
stuff.
partner up with
So
them.
yeah, so I'm like, oh, cool. Well, that's pretty good, you know. So and I like you can use SEMrush for like a week for free or something,
Yeah.
and then you know, and then it's gonna say, oh, we want your credit card. No.
Yeah. 89,000. Okay. Its estimated monthly clicks right now is 35,000 monthly clicks, and the estimated monthly SEO click value is almost 90,000 a month. So
Wow.
it's pretty good evidence that if you are willing to, because this company started 6 or 7 years ago in a dude's apartment. So, and it really is kind of an awesome, maybe a rags to riches story.
Hmm.
Um, these dudes just liked dirt bikes, and they were having a hard time. They had these ones that were having a hard time getting a title for, and they just kind of created this service where they could go through states that are a lot more lenient, and it blossomed in this service now that I don't have any idea what the financials for, but I know that the revenue is well into the seven figures. So from a guy, something a dude started on his laptop. So I mean, it really, the sky is completely the limit, you know.
Hmm. That's
And I
awesome.
mean, I don't know that everyone. So I mean, that one is kind of a that's kind of a tough one to compare ourselves to, because I mean, a lot of this depends on what it is you're providing. So for them, they're the way they start out, and they've morphed a lot since then, but originally it was dirt bikes, ATVs, UTVs. So very high search volume and
Hmm.
low, initially pretty low ticket items, you know, a couple $100. So they were
Right.
having to sell a lot of them to make money, but there were a lot of people that were interested, you know, especially in the economy states that don't, you know, allow you to enjoy fun. I won't say what their names are, but they're far west.
The Department of Making You Sad shows up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, you know, these guys weren't anything particularly special. They just stuck with it for a long time. So,
Yeah.
and so the other one I work for, they are a defense contractor. So the money is very high ticket items, but much harder to scale because no one is looking for those keywords. You know, like I'm talking 20 to 40 clicks a month. But, you know, the model with that is you just have to get the right eyeballs on your service, because
Yeah. So
each,
nobody's looking for Garmin XYZ per
right.
month, except they're very
Yeah.
specific.
But when they land the contract, it might be a 10 to $20 million contract.
Hmm.
So, you know, you don't have to convert thousands of them to make money.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you got these folks that are selling, you know, ebooks or something like that. You've got to sell quite a bit of ebooks to turn that around.
You know, and I dabbled. I think my final earnings on Gumroad was like $350, but it was a great
Hey,
learning
that's
experience.
good.
It was proof of concept that
Yeah,
people will buy your stuff. And
sure.
I probably, if I wanted to do Hype Fury again for $50 a month to promote it, I would have more sales now because my following has doubled since then.
Hmm.
But it was a great proof of concept, you know, and there's no replacement for like when you first start getting those dollars, you're like, I just cranked out that book on a weekend, you know, that
Yeah.
people will buy it. So you know that if you can do that once, you can scale it. But yeah, as far as digital products like that, I mean, you have to have, and it drives me nuts when gurus that have 50 or 100,000 followers say follower count doesn't matter. I'm like, doesn't it? You know, because you scale, I had 10 sales this month and your audience is 30,000 times bigger than mine. Well, you're going to get a lot more eyeballs on it than I am. So if you have
Yep.
already built a big audience, I think you could convert with smaller ticket items. But for small fries like us, it's hardly worth the time and effort.
Yeah, one thing you were talking about is make sure that you have a blog on
Yes.
your site.
Yep.
And I shot myself in the foot because I was looking at Google Analytics or dashboard or whatever it was, and I was seeing, oh, well, I got only two people went and looked at this chicken article I had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I had podcast episode articles, and then I had regular articles that Perpin and I wrote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought that nobody was going there because I was only getting 2 clicks. So I moved most of those over to a newsletter site, which is thrivingnews.com,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and which is good. But and then when I finally figured out Google Analytics, I'm like, all the organic traffic from the search engines are coming from the blog things that I didn't move.
Oh no.
So I like moved 75% of them over,
Yeah.
but I missed a couple of them.
Yep.
or I thought that I'd leave them there or something. And most of the traffic coming into thrivingthefuture.com is either coming from Twitter when I
Yep.
reference it, or or Spotify, the links that are in the show notes, or it's actually coming from the search engine going to how do I sex my chickens,
Yes.
right? That's like the most high performing, that and the chestnut one is the most high performing articles on the site. And so it's like, and which is funny because sexing chickens by their feathers only works in the first year.
Hmm.
Doesn't work after they get 2 generations, because then losing that they start losing that trait that the hatcheries bred in so that they could do that.
Oh, God, I didn't know that because I haven't read your article. I didn't know
Oh yeah. Okay.
that.
Yeah, so basically you can take chickens from the hatchery or from Tractor Supply,
Hmm.
and you can look at their wings, and one of them has a curve and the other one has like an indented X.
Hmm.
And the indented X is usually a male and the curve is usually a female.
Really?
So I had almost 100% in the first year, and then I raised my own chicks in the second year, and then it started breeding that out, and I was like, crap, these are all roosters. How did that happen? And I sold some, and I checked them and I said, oh, I'm sure this is a female, and then I sold it, and then I had to go get the rooster and stuff because it started crowing,
Right.
and somebody was in Topeka, and that's not allowed. So yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So, but yeah, that article is the most highest performing organic uh, piece on there, but I moved most of them over. So I'm like, I either have to move them back and either cross post and
Hmm.
say it's here and over here, or something. I haven't,
I
I
mean,
haven't,
personally, that's what I would do. I'd have them at both locations.
right.
Is
That's,
one a
that's,
redirect or they're totally different domains?
they're totally different, but they're the
Oh yeah,
same.
I would do
They're the
them on
same
both.
content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just do the same. Just copy it. I would absolutely do that.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. And then you're going to hit it eventually, right?
Yeah,
And it's going to come up.
dude, numbers. This is a numbers game. That's the thing. Yes, your content has to be good, but this is a what I've come away with is beyond anything else. No amount of keyword optimizing. It is a numbers game. I tweeted a couple days ago. Gosh, I can't remember which. I think it was all in one SEO. Anyway, I just said, how long does it take for you to, have domain, to be a domain authority? And I was like, well, whichever site it was has 237 pages of blog posts. So I mean, beyond anything else, I don't believe that you have to be an SEO guru. What I believe you have to be is a very consistent performer, a
Right.
consistent human performer. You need to keep showing up and talking about the things. And like that one, if that's your highest ranking one, then what I would do is turn that one into a pillar and then start branching off of that one, dissecting it into the more granular parts of that article. Like you could really go down some rabbit holes and use that as a pillar to support and other pieces of content to support that one.
Sure.
Really hone in on that. But man, this is not a technical thing. This is a work ethic thing. And
Yeah.
that's where I realized, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I can work, and I've always been consistent. And that's this goes back to the bear. All
Yeah.
right. You just need to not be eaten by the bear. As long as your other compadres are getting eaten by the bear, you're going to be fine. You'll get there eventually.
Yeah. And
So,
we've been talking about that on Twitter, is the fact that so many people get wrapped up in the I need inspiration, or I don't feel right about this, or I've got writer's block, or they think it's art,
no.
right? You make content, the people who are super songwriters and the people who do things every day like you're generating stuff every day.
Yeah.
And that songwriter, he wrote 100 songs to get that one that was good. I mean, I was writing songs once. I named the song Writer's Block, and it instantly gave me writer's block. And it took me a couple of years to finish it because it just kept getting in my head.
Right.
So, but yeah, I fight that all the time. And it's like, you know, just put it to bed,
Yeah.
publish it, and don't worry about it.
one thing I've talked about, and I think I've reused this content a number of times, is but I don't get writer's block because I get paid for my content. So,
Right.
suddenly it eliminates that. People need to get out of their own heads. All right. And maybe they need to go do something tactile, do something physical, and it will help your mental state. It really does. But I mean, it's just like a carpenter. How do they get better at their trade? They do it a lot.
Yeah.
You don't become a craftsman. You don't move through the apprentice phase and become a craftsman by theoreticals. It's not theory. It's because you swung a hammer a whole bunch of times. It's because you learned how to use a framing square. It's because
Yeah.
you learned all of those things through repetition. And writing is absolutely no different. And growing a blog is no different. It's repetition. You just have to create a content calendar, which actually I'm writing an article about tonight.
Good.
And you just need to stick to it. I mean, really, you don't need to sit there and dissect it and I don't know if I got the right keywords. You're not gonna know. Just start producing. You'll figure it
Mhm.
out. That is the thing. And the great thing is though, your competition is a lot less than you think it is, because I think you're over 100 podcast episodes, right?
Yeah.
You're in the like top 1% or something of podcasters, because most people don't get past, I think, 6 or 7.
Yep.
If you just do it, you're going to get there and you're going to start breaking through. And we also are really hard in ourselves, I think, in the moment, um, thinking that we're not measuring up because we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people and
Sure.
forgetting that we're running our own race. And,
Mhm.
we need to step back when we're in those moments of needing inspiration and just review our own journey. It doesn't have to be some sort of metaphysical sort of thing, but just look at where you're at. I was thinking about that today. Like, I quit my job 3 years ago. And frankly, looking back on it, I would never do that because I know so much more now than I did then. But I wouldn't know it if I hadn't done it. So I had to do it to learn what I've learned. Um, there's no replacement for just taking action, you know, no matter what you're trying to grow. That's the only way to grow it. Farmstead, blog, podcast, whatever.
Right.
That's it.
That's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get over being an artist when you get to the year mark and then you're hosting doubles or triples,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and then you're like, and then my wife's going, are you ever going to make any money on that? Or what are you doing? It's
I get that
spending an
question.
awful lot of time, and stuff. So, but yeah, it spun up the side hustle with the trees, the grow nut trees. And that was profitable last year. So, they
That's
all
awesome.
you come up with a strategy and you go, okay, so this is going to feed this, is going to feed this, and it's all going to, cross pollinate. And that's the way to do it.
And that applies to a whole lot of different things in life.
Yeah. It's
So,
just people get so wrapped up in is it a hobby? Do I feel it today? And some of the episodes that I thought sucked, and I was like, I'm not even going to publish this. Then they were like, they took off,
mm-hmm.
you
Isn't that
know.
wild?
It's just like, okay, I wasn't on that night.
Right.
I was not on at all.
Well,
And
we're our own worst critics, so that really is the biggest issue, and you see it everywhere. I've videotaped myself lifting and thought that I was having a terrible day, thought that I couldn't do it, I thought I was slow, thought whatever, and then I watched, I watched the video. I'm like, huh, same speed as always, did exactly like I always do. We can't get out of our own heads,
yeah,
and what you said about not viewing everything as art, it's not always art. Sometimes it's just repetition. Tom Brady didn't become Tom Brady through art. He did it because he did the same four-step drop 14,000 times. That's what he did. He practiced the it was the fundamentals over and over again, and that's all writing is. And if you're willing to do that forever, your blog's going to take off. That it is literally a numbers game. I don't believe for 1 second that you couldn't pick any of the most obscure topics in the world, and if you had 50 pages of blog posts on your website, you would get traffic, and you would eventually get the type of traffic, because what we do when we do these things, a lot of times, I mean, I've found where I'm at now is evolved wildly, because when I started this full-time journey 3 years ago, I didn't really know what people wanted, but it just takes time. You have to put your ideas out there and see what people respond to. That's why
Yeah.
I started talking about SEO more, not because I was an SEO nerd. It's just that that's what actually people started responding to.
Hmm.
So I started reading articles on it and realized just going to Ahrefs and SEMrush's blogs and just literally reading their blog posts put me ahead of everyone else. And they're like, "Hey, how'd you know that?" I'm like, I read some blog posts. That was it. If you're willing to subject yourself to that, you'll become the expert. You know, you'll be here talking about it. And
Yeah.
it is nothing more than just having discipline and making yourself do it.
Hmm. Yeah, I've some of the guests that I've had on recently, and some of my goals for 2024 is to have on folks that I want to learn something from,
Mhm.
and so I'm not just doing this for entertainment. It's also so I can learn some more skills, right?
Right.
And stuff. So yeah, I like the idea of the content library. That's helped me a lot.
Oh, it's huge. It is absolutely huge. That and I mean that was what doomed my first website 3 years ago. I just didn't know what to do with it. I
Hmm.
launched it, kind of about page, wrote a couple of posts, 2, 3 weeks apart, and I just had no direction. If you will create that direction, it doesn't have. And here's the thing: it doesn't have to be perfect. And that is what I learned from writing for rich clients. That is when you write for brokies, they think that they are so granular about keywords, and you need to use this 37 times exactly, because they think that actually matters, but then they only pay for you to write 3 articles. I'm like, you're never that doesn't do anything. What
Hmm.
you need to do is trust the process and just understand that producing content consistently for years on end is what actually moves the needle.
Yeah.
So when I started writing for rich clients, I realized they didn't talk about those things. They don't care. They just want consistent stuff. That's not what they're concerned about, is that I don't write anything that besmirches their brand. That's about the extent of it. As long as that is in there, or that I'm not saying that stuff that is factually inaccurate, especially the one that does out of state registrations and titles, have to be very careful in that, because words mean things.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that we are speaking in the legal definition of words. And like tax avoidance is not the same as evasion, so don't confuse the two. um, yeah, like to the layperson, they mean the same dang thing. All right, it's avoiding taxes. But there's a legal way and there's an illegal way. So, but beyond that, they what I learned from writing for wealthy clients was that they were not interested in the microscopic details of it. They wanted to make sure that I was pushing out 4 articles a week, you know, and
Yeah,
that's actually what works.
absolutely. And side hustles are a form of legal tax avoidance.
Yes, yes, they are.
All the rich guys, they know that. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely, they do.
so that's funny. So what do you think of all these people are moving to Substack, and it looks like Twitter is starting to limit Substack because we're starting to see it as a competitor. I was thinking about that. What do you think about that? Is it better to have your own site, you know, platforms over protocols, or protocols over platforms, whatever Cyprian says, or because you're gonna get ghettoized over in ghetto as in Poland ghetto
Hmm.
in on Substack.
I think that, well, okay, I think that people do Substack and Beehive. I started on Beehive. That's where mine
Hmm.
is. Because you don't have to pay. Like, there's no money down. Like, you don't have
Sure.
you're not building any infrastructure, because when you start building your own website, you realize you're like, wait, I got to buy this plugin, and I got to buy
Right.
that plugin, and I got to buy all
Right.
these every single year. But that content is mine. It's locked down. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm still going to keep posting on Beehive, and I'm going to keep posting on the LinkedIn newsletter that I use too, because it's they have an organic newsletter, because it grows faster than any of my other ones. Like, it grows all the time just for me showing up on LinkedIn and copy and pasting the exact same thing I put in everywhere else. But I think that everyone is a fool if they don't create their own website and own it as best that anyone can own anything. Because you can be how many guys, especially if you're at all, right of center, how quickly can they be deplatformed? And you just
Sure.
lost your audience of 100,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
and and what happened? I mean, I've seen like Twitter's algorithm. I'll go through growth spurts. I'm like, man, I gained 60 followers without even working, and then it just stalls, for months. And that's you can't. It doesn't matter. I could post content 50 times a day, and it wouldn't change that. But
Right.
if I go and post that on my own website, I have a lot more say in how it grows and that it belongs to me. So, and I think that, I mean, I always preach this, but I mean, organic traffic is king,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't get that with those other sources. You need to own your own domain and keep it. I absolutely believe that, and I think in any of the large accounts on Twitter that are still preaching Twitter growth and all that, well, if you go into their link tree, they've still got their own website. I'm like, well, you're saying that, but you're doing the same thing that everyone else ought to be doing.
Yeah.
So I think you should use it. I mean, there's nothing. My blog posts off of my website now. I just copy and paste them. It takes me 5 minutes to throw it on there. So if I get leads off of that, if I get an audience there, that's great. But I would never want it to be I wouldn't want it to be my sole source of producing content. I think you
Right.
absolutely need to have your own domain that you own, your own digital real estate. You absolutely need to own that.
Sure, because we all used to be on Blogger, right? And then it got
Yeah.
bought by Google.
Yep.
And no, nobody's on Blogger or Blogspot, right?
Yeah. No, I
So
don't know anyone that is.
nobody is. So
Nope.
yeah, that's funny. Well, great. So how can people contact you, get on your newsletter, follow you
Uh,
on Twitter?
Ironically, it still is the best way to get with me is on Twitter, and it's going to be at John McCoy Writes, and I have the same handle on LinkedIn. And I do on Instagram, but I do not use it. I never. It's just I don't know. That's like a Zoomer thing. So I just
Hmm.
it's not my deal. Um, and then but now you can also get to me through my website. It's www.justenoughseo.com. Just like it sounds, no spaces.
Yeah, I like your look and feel on there. It looks like old time Reddit. I like it.
Okay, so check this out. It's funny you should mention that. Quick anecdote. I showed it to my wife and she's like, I don't like it. And then this gal that I been started following me on Twitter, she DM'd me. She's like, can I give you, some feedback without you getting defensive? I'm like, yeah, go for it. She's like, your website is boring and plain. I'm like, okay. So all the guys have actually really, they're like, that is so cool. I love the font and I love that feel. And the women are like, I don't like it.
Yeah, I could
So
see that wouldn't work, but yeah, I was more of a nostalgia than anything else, right?
I think it's cool. And that's, when I saw that theme, I was like, it's really plain, it's really boring. And I think that's kind of why I picked it. I'm like, it's so plain and boring. It's kind of a proof of concept that I want to create to show, oh, I'm going to, in spite of that, I'm going to learn to drive traffic to it. So to me, it's actually a challenge.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's funny. Yeah, one thing I found out today is that have you seen those alt text for images? So one of the settings to get SEO is so there's your image has an alt text and it's used
Yes.
for
Mm-hmm.
screen readers,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So like I worked at the state and they had a whole bunch of people that were visually impaired, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they
Yeah.
were use read screen readers, and there's nothing more humbling than have somebody use your app or your website with a screen reader because it'll fail miserably. Because if it doesn't have alt text, then the
Mm-hmm.
screen reader won't read it, buttons won't show up, all kinds of stuff happens. So,
Well,
but
that
if
puts
you have the alt text, if you put your keywords in your alt text, then it shows up in the SEO hits.
I had actually seen, I hadn't gone that far down the rabbit hole. I didn't understand why alt text was important, but I knew it was. I knew it was a ranking factor, but that
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense. And that's why it's good to have these conversations to create some context for things. Because I'm like, why does that matter if there's alt text? But now that you say that for visually impaired, it's there to describe the image, and that makes sense that you would plug your keywords in there. And that's the thing. I mean, you could spend a lifetime. And if one thing I will say, because I'm not I am a building in public SEO enthusiast, but in 2 or 3 years, I will be an expert.
Sure.
Anyone that is willing to put in the reps for this will get paid. If you are willing to go down the rabbit hole and just start studying this stuff, dude, everyone asked me about it just because I was the only person that started talking about it,
Yeah.
you know? And I swear, if anyone is willing to just put in the time, they will,
Uh-oh,
but
there's
most people won't.
you might cut out there for a second.
Yep.
The back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah. So if you put in the time and then it cut out.
Naturally. Right here at the end.
Yeah. So if you put in the reps and you put in the time, then you're going to be okay, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay,
you'll do well.
yeah. Good.
We made it through almost the whole thing.
Yeah, that's great.